this next turn of when I go out and speak is to speak to individuals, especially our younger scientists, because they may feel that they are underprepared to become an entrepreneur, that scientists are just inherently bad at being entrepreneurs, which is not true. Scientific method is all about failing and learning how to pick yourself up and move on and try something new. So if we can't do it, goodness gracious, who can, right?
Welcome to the BioTalk Unzipped podcast, where we unzip the stories behind medical progress by sharing the latest and greatest advances in biopharmaceuticals and medical technologies in a fun, entertaining, and enlightening format. And now your co-hosts, Gregory Austin and Dr. Chad Briscoe. Hi, and welcome to episode 6 of BioTalk Unzipped. This is the continuation of our wonderful conversation with Dr. Stephanie Pasas Farmer. And I'm curious, how does these new types of machine analysis, machine assisted analyses, intersect with data integrity? Are there data integrity concerns that come along with this, or is it actually more kind of secure data because you don't have individuals kind of maybe going in and out as much?
I believe it is the latter, but I have to prove that because people think it's the former, if that makes any sense. So people, individuals, we in this field are risk adverse people doing very risky jobs, and data integrity is something it's incumbent on us to improve it no matter what. And so whenever you bring in a new tool or something that they feel is a black box, you have to prove data integrity. So there is a requirement of actually showing and proving that the data integrity and the quality actually improves, and that there's less tampering able to be had. And we have to prove that upon the start. And as you alluded to, the fact that we have less humans able to even touch it, even if we're assigning positive intent and you just accidentally delete a cell, just much of the way that we're looking at, especially the molecular data, we did it in the past for mass spec data and then moved into ligand binding, where we removed the human having to manipulate Excel sheets and upload text files. And we removed that functionality to keep data more secure and any transcription or other accidental errors, and also from these sort of bad intentions of data changing as well.
Sure.
Because a lot of actually the data integrity issues are usually actually innocent mistakes that can occur in just handling, it's almost like that game of telephone, right? You keep handing things off to multiple people and things are going to change. It is important for my company to prove that it is higher integrity, but we do have to show that because it is a paradigm shift. It's much where I liken it to, as Chad mentioned, I started talking about this move forward back in 2018 before the pandemic. So the idea of having a virtual audit blew people's minds. If we say virtual audit now, everyone's like, sure, here's my Zoom link, come on into my systems and look at everything remotely. But the idea of having a remote audit back in 2018, no one believed it was possible. We all know it's possible now. There's some extents of where you have to be on site, but you can do a remote audit, really like 80% of the data and things you can review remotely. Mm-hmm. So that is, a lot of that comes to that security we have in working in the cloud. That's another thing that shifted, is that actually in many ways, cloud-based systems are more secure if you treat them appropriately, because you don't have servers that people can hack into. Like our system, it actually doesn't retain any of the data. It runs the analytics and it retains the analytics for the auditing, but it doesn't retain the raw data. So that's incredibly safe because it just processes everything in milliseconds and then deletes the original file and it's all gone. And you have your source file, but the auditing itself, it's not there. And that's amazingly safe. And so when you work in a cloud-based system, it's just that shifting of paradigm of actually how it's safer, but you have to, and more secure, but you have to prove it. And so that's where things like we have ourselves ISO standards that we've become certified in, and we work under those. We work under GAMP5 CSV. We actually even have SOC 2 compliance and attested, which is for the financial industry, for cloud, for online banking. We actually went through and got certified and attested, just so it's almost The ISO is you have your standard operating procedures in place, and SOC 2 is the
Hmm.
building, so that you actually follow it. That's kind of where we work in. So going back full circle, it is safer, but we have to prove it. And that's what we do to prove it, to make people feel more comfortable in this shift to cloud-based system and remote auditing.
Agreed. And it's going to be a process because I know there's some maybe older school managers or executives that don't really embrace or understand the cloud, and they think it's very unsecure and that anyone can get in there. So those important things you bring up, and it brought another question to my mind is how are regulators dealing with this, with the explosion of AI and advanced technologies? Do you think they're scrambling to try and keep up, and trying maybe to hire even more computer science and AI learning folks to manage and deal with the changing regulatory environment as we introduce more AI to the process?
I believe so. I can't speak directly, having not asked that specific question to individuals within the FDA and EMA. But for example, I went and spoke in an event in Kansas City, and two of the individuals fully suited in their incredible uniforms from the FDA, very impressive individuals, stood
Yeah.
up there and spoke about AI. And
Yeah.
their efforts, and I mean, they do have some validations, and guidance on AI itself, and some regulatory requirements. But as I said, it's in a different field, a different use. So they are trying to move forward with it and follow and keep abreast of it. But when you're smaller and more nimble, it's like the changes. You're trying to run behind that snowball, and so it's very difficult. And I do feel for them, that things are
Mm.
changing so quickly, and it's an unprecedented speed, that it would be very difficult to keep up or keep ahead of it. So.
Yeah. And I think it's more going to be reactive than proactive at this point, to be
Hmm.
honest, because there's things we haven't even imagined what AI may do in the process. And they're going to have to go back and kind of retroactively figure out how do we regulate this and come up with new regulations that fit and don't constrain, what the technology is aiming to do.
Hmm.
Yeah, the FDA gets beat up on when things don't go well, and so they have to be conservative in some of what they do. But my personal interactions, and I think Stephanie would probably confirm this as well, is that these folks that are in the FDA, the ones that I know, they as much as anyone in the industry are in favor of moving new technology forward, whether it's AI or new drugs, new modalities, new analytical technologies. How do we get that in there? But at the same time, they have this overriding mission of protecting our safety, and they don't compromise the safety and the public safety to move anything forward, right? So it's sort of they have these very challenging, uh, uh, diametrically opposed goals of ensuring our safety, but moving forward and enabling new technology. And I think we're talking about difficult jobs, man. I think being an
Mm.
FDA, anybody in the FDA in the many different roles that are trying to tackle this, I really, I guess I don't envy them in that, but I respect what they do, and so we need to work with them to help that. I know Stephanie, you've worked, as you mentioned, you've worked with the FDA a bit with your software and trying to, and I think on some educational opportunities through AAPS. You've done a lot of education where there's a lot of FDA folks. So yeah, it's good to see, quite frankly, the FDA trying to
Mhm.
do that. And like I say, at the same time, I guess I'm saying this for the many people I know at the FDA. They really are there. They sometimes it seems like they're a pain in the neck, and I know they don't always give the answers that people want, but they really are number one. They're out there to protect their safety.
Mhm.
So.
Hmm.
Yeah. And my experience with professionals in the FDA, by and large, most of them are there. They want to partner with
Hmm.
biotech and pharma to
Yeah.
help them accomplish
Yeah.
their goals. And if those companies realize that's what they're trying to do, and they take the right approach, then things generally go a lot more smoothly and help improve their path to registration.
Yeah,
Hmm.
agreed.
So Stephanie, you didn't address part of my question, which was I was curious how you use AI in your daily life, in your non-work life. Is it
Oh, my
has it become
non-work
something?
life.
Has
Do
it
I
become
have a
something?
non-work
Yeah,
life?
your non-work
Do
life.
I
Do you have
have
one of
one? I
those?
don't know. I don't think so.
I see you on Facebook. I know you have one.
Other than going to Jayhawk games, I don't feel like I have
Right,
much
that's a
fun
big part of it.
sometimes, or
Yeah.
Ubering my children around.
Hmm.
Um, so in my non-work life, you can even think down
Hmm.
to Alexa, right? I have an Alexa
Yeah.
around my house. That's just,
Yeah.
we just got our first EV car, which is fully automated and you can actually hook up to Alexa. So I think that I use a lot of that. I try to stay away from ChatGPT and others, but I am always curious about it. But I try to, um, it is amazing to see what it can do nowadays. But really, more of where I focus in my non work life is really more of the things that always automate manual processes. So I guess I still take that home. Anything that I sit there, Alexa, add this to my shopping list. Alexa, forward this to Sean. That's where I find I use it a lot in my daily life. Also, the bane of my existence when it comes to AI are the algorithms of whatever shows show up on Amazon or
Hmm.
Netflix. I feel like my children have hijacked.
Hmm. I
Get a
feel your
lot of
pain. I
K-pop.
feel your
Get
pain
a
there.
lot of K-pop. A lot of Taylor Swift. Or Cardi B. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff that's happening in my
Oh
life,
my
which is the
goodness.
bane of my existence. What about you, Chad? What do you use?
Lots of the different things that you mentioned, but I've started using it planning travel, and it was interesting. I did this first when I was talking with my mom. She was looking at going on a trip, and I said, hey, you should go into Chat GPT and just have it design I think she was going to Costa Rica. I said, have it design a 10-day trip to Costa Rica for you, with, with a focus on birding and doing this and doing that, and she goes in and, she didn't really understand what Chat GPT was. She goes, wow, this is a cool travel app. And I'm like, no, it's not a travel app, Mom.
That's
So
funny.
So
she's going
much.
to listen to this, and then I'm going to get a text. I'll know when she listened to this because I'm going to get a text. But we're going to my family. Part of my family is going to Korea and Japan this summer, and and I put it in just as as a starting point, not the definitive, but I put in how to spend 5 days in Kyoto, and then
Hmm.
putting it, then you prompts and you start having this conversation about it. It feels like you're talking to a travel agent, right? And
That's
you kind of narrow
amazing.
it down, and then and then make notes, and then I go back and Google individual specific things. But it is absolutely amazing. So that travel piece is pretty
That's cool.
cool, and that's a really accessible thing that anybody can do. But I'll admit, I also I use it to give me a head start on presentations now.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
It doesn't develop anything anywhere near what it needs to be. But if I did a bioanalytical training not too long ago, and so I went in and I said, give me 20 slide introduction to bioanalytical, and it just kind of goes through, and it names all the slides. It just kind of gave me an outline to get started. Sometimes the hardest thing
Just
is
get
just to get
Started.
started.
started, right?
Hmm.
First step.
And then in work, we're trying to figure out how to really use it in work. The first time I really used it in work, well, there's two times I'll tell you about. So one time that we used it at work, uh, we said, wow, this AI, this is last May, June. We said, wow, this AI is going crazy. We got to figure out how we're going to approach this at a corporate level. And so our assignment was to come back with like 20 ways that we might use AI in our department. Right. And of course I run the bioanalytical division, and I had my answer in about 2 minutes because I just went into Chat GPT and said, what are 20 ways that AI can support bioanalytical? so
Yeah.
I had my work done in about 2 minutes, and that actually was almost good enough. There were a couple I deleted. They were, it missed on a couple, but that was one. And then the other was really interesting when we talk about math, and helping kids cheat at their homework and whatnot. So my brother texted me and said, hey, I was using I was using AI to do a calculation for it was like a molar conversion, like I don't know, nanomoles to grams per mil or something like that, right? And Rick texts me, he goes, "Hey, this is what I just got out of ChatGPT." He said, "I'm not the chemist, you are. Is this right?" And I looked at it and I went, "What in the heck?" And it was weird because all of the steps that it said it was doing were correct, but then the end result, and it didn't give interim results, so I couldn't kind of
Hmm.
track where it went wrong. But then the answer it gave, like every step was right, but then the final answer was way off. It just made no sense at all. So yeah, that's where again we go to, these models need to be refined and adjusted, and we can't trust them explicitly. Kids, sorry, you can't do your homework with it. You can use it as a supplement. Again, I don't think, I think teachers need to lean into it. That's what I, kind of tell my kids, the two that are still in school is I think it makes sense to lean into it and to use it because it's going to be a tool that's there. And so we got to learn how to use it. But you can't just say balance this equation and expect that it's just correct. Check that work.
Right.
But it
No,
does
I've
an
that's fair
also
enough.
amazing job. Yeah, it does an amazing job with things like balancing chemical reactions.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
wow.
That is cool.
I've also heard
Yeah.
the opposite. Oh, sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
Oh, it's okay. No, go ahead.
I've heard the kind of opposite, where a colleague, a friend of mine, said that their child was accused of cheating using Chat
Uh-oh.
GPT, but
Hmm.
there is a false positive rate of like 4 or 5% of the detectors of AI.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
they actually have the proof that this individual, like this child, wrote everything themselves, but they're still getting in trouble as if, and they got like a 0 on it because supposedly. So and
Hmm.
because they're
A
using
lot of
it,
holes.
yeah. So then what do you do about that? Because then you have to go in and have a long discussion of false positive rates with. So if you have the proof, but I do, what I worry about is with my children are the deep fakes and things like that, where
Yeah.
Oh
they're
yeah.
getting so incredibly
Hmm.
difficult to
Believe.
detect. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
Yeah.
so
They
what do we
believe
believe
anything
and
that
what do
they
we
see.
don't?
Yeah.
And
That's going to be
I
scary as the
Hmm.
presidential election comes along too.
Mm.
Yeah.
it's going to be
Big
Yeah.
time.
bad.
Yep.
And
Big time.
but also just down to, even if you remember, 20, 30 years ago, I picked up every phone call that came to my way, right? Even though I had caller ID, I still picked it up.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Nowadays, with the amount of spam that comes through and junk that comes through,
Hmm.
I feel like if it's important and I don't recognize the phone number, it'll go to voicemail and I'll call them back.
Yeah.
So,
Same.
Yep.
Same.
Yep.
Yeah. I get frustrated because I get so used to the conversational nature of Chat GPT and it remembers what you were talking about. And Alexa doesn't at all.
that's true.
You
Hmm.
know, it's a very simple, it's
Yep.
almost binary. You ask the question, get an answer, and you can't do any follow ups. It just says, I have no idea what you're talking about. And
Yep.
so once that gets, and there's actually a verbal version now, you can actually talk to Chat GPT in the app and have a conversation. It's kind of surreal. And once that hits, these devices, whether Amazon jumps into it or Google or whoever, it's going to make, if it's not Amazon, it's going to make them obsolete because people are going to love being able to have that conversation and just continue that and get it to do more of what they want them to do. But going back to what you said, Chad, that's fascinating. I never thought about applying a travel plan because, as you know, I'm going to Korea as well
Right.
in May, and we got our tickets, so we're very pumped up about that. So it might be interesting to see what it comes up with. Although I know my wife, being from Korea, she has the agenda, so I think um, we know where we're going. We're just
You
going to
know where you're
be
going.
following her lead and eating our way through Korea. It's going to be fantastic.
That
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
incredible.
What's fascinating is you can just you can dive into like one day's like you said, you can have that conversational style. So if day 5 it says go to the whatever temple, and it leaves at high level, you can say, well, what's a good place to eat lunch near the temple that has authentic Korean food, or which bus line would I pick up to get to that temple, and it'll it knows where the temple is, and it might ask you where's your starting point, and then it can give you those details. So it can give you some things that maybe your Korean wife doesn't know.
Yeah,
So yeah,
there you
maybe you
go.
can surprise her with some things.
I, it's worth a shot. We're going to need all the help
Yeah,
in planning as
yeah,
we can because there's a
yep.
lot to do,
There
and
is, there is.
even though we'll be there for a couple of weeks, there's only so much you can
Yeah.
do in that
Yeah.
time, for sure. So Stephanie, speaking of travel and global projects, I know you recently went to South Africa. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that project and what you had going on there?
So I work for a nonprofit on the consulting side. We work with a nonprofit that focuses on malaria and tuberculosis, really anti-infectives for unmet medical need in these developing areas. Now, South Africa is beautiful and fully developed where we were at, but it really services, that's the location of where the labs are to service the trials that are occurring in the continent of
Mhm.
Africa. So we are working with that group to help grow out the capabilities and capacities at different laboratories that are in different parts of South Africa, from Johannesburg all the way down to Cape Town. So we went over
Nice.
there. This is the third trip I've been there. Um, and we have more plans next year. I might even be going to Kenya and Uganda, which is not going to be as glamorous as Cape Town, where I stayed down the street from a Ferrari dealer. um, but it'll be definitely more out in the bush. But it is really working with them to set up the laboratories, because many of the clinical trials are happening, and they're sending the samples to the EU or to the US. And it's really like, how do we keep this testing and a growth economic, um, bring an economic advantage as well as the medical meeting unmet medical need. So that's what we're there assisting. So, and it's really exciting. We're using cool new, well, new to me, not exactly dried blood spot, but whole blood collection devices, because a lot of these trials will be happening out in the bush. And so there's not like they're going to have a centrifuge. So there's also that
Mm,
scientific, troubleshooting that we're doing with the various different labs and working with them. So it's a very exciting opportunity. But
It's new to you, and at the same time, you're the expert when you go down there,
I know, right?
right?
I've done
Yeah.
dry
Yeah.
blood, right? And I've pulled and I've analyzed whole bloods,
Hmm.
but there's
Hmm.
things like this is a monoclonal therapy, and they're trying to, and so it's just it's an incredible nuance. And then also it's not on a card, so it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you have this career of doing stuff nobody's ever done. It's really cool.
it is.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. You really
Yeah.
yeah, congratulations for that. Yeah, that's really cool.
That's excellent. Tell me, kind of shifting gears a little bit back to your career. Tell me what was maybe one of the most surprising things that you've encountered or dealt with.
The most surprising thing is that I enjoy being a CEO. I didn't expect me to enjoy it. I know that sounds rather odd, um, but I really enjoy the strategy behind it, the problem solving as well, of how are we going to keep the lights on during a pandemic. I have a small team, and we were working remotely from 2015, right? And so we actually had to solve working remotely across the team because the consultants were all over the country. And how do we communicate effectively as a small group with lower resources than others? So that was the biggest surprise, is how much I loved it. And it's actually become a personal, I do, I mean, people joke about love languages, and my love language, if you want to call it that, is of service. And so I find that once I feel honored that I was given this opportunity, and was willing to take that chance and jump out when everyone thought I was crazy and do my own thing. And I do feel that scientists are not taught the entrepreneurial skills. It's just
Hmm.
something we
Right.
are not taught. And my father was in finance. He was actually a CFO, and he refused to hire people with PhDs. He thought they were just too academic. And so it was
That's
pervasive,
funny.
right? Across, that he was an accountant in finance. And so, it's a totally different field, but I feel like we are underprepared to lead companies. And so I really want to, kind of this next turn of when I go out and speak, is to speak to individuals, especially our younger scientists, because they may feel that um, they are underprepared to become an entrepreneur, that scientists are just inherently bad at being entrepreneurs, which is not true. Scientific method is all about failing and learning how to pick yourself up and move on and try something new. So if we can't do it, goodness gracious, who can, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's another language to learn, and it's also the identifying factors of maybe you could do it, but you don't want to because it's just risky and it's not always fun. So that's also that
Right.
is that. So I really would like to get out there and speak to young scientists and even middle-aged scientists, whatever scientists that are interested in starting their own company, and encouraging them and saying it is possible. And I also, as an individual, I've sat on different boards as advisor about different technologies. And there's times where the procurement or finance, they make the opposite of what I feel the industry is needed as far as a decision. And that is partially because the scientists are not in positions of power and don't really
Mm-hmm.
have a voice. And so the finance or the money, it's very expensive to do it and very risky, but they don't understand the maybe the big open space that's available to them. And I'd first thing is the molecular assay labs. I've been telling people for a decade that's where they need to put their money. They need to grow that. Everyone didn't want to do it because, as Chad said, it's not an area that people thought. Now here we are. Everyone's scrambling to do it.
Right.
So, so that's what I would love to do is see more people that are scientists in positions and decision making on board of directors and actually leading the companies that they helped found.
Excellent. And that kind of is a great segue into my next question is, for those young people who are aspiring to pursue a career in bioanalysis or anywhere in the pharmaceutical sciences, what advice would you give them based on your own experiences and the evolution of the industry today?
I would say that based on my own experiences that many times people told me not to do what I was going to do. But, and perhaps, and those are individuals that were, I respected and many times had made incredible positive decisions in their own career. But follow your gut as well and take in all the information that you hear from others and ask the hard questions. But in the end, if you want to try something, try it because you can always pick yourself back up and do something else in the future. And you're never going to do anything incredible if you don't do something crazy.
Well, just thinking about that question, Stephanie, and your answer. So I was thinking there was probably don't go to Kansas. Why would you go to Kansas? Don't leave pharma for a CRO. There was probably don't leave pharma for biotech. Don't quit your job and start a consulting company. Uh, don't turn your personal software into a software company because you can't compete. There were probably people who said, "You're crazy. Don't go to South Africa." So, I mean, I think I missed a couple along the way, but you've told so many journeys of things that I would guess people probably said, said you were crazy. Don't do this. Don't do that. So amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Thank you. And also there's the idea of we don't have any investors currently, but that is our next step. So everything that we've done so far is
Mm-hmm.
is bootstrapped. And we grew
Yeah.
30% last year in the middle of a recession.
Nice.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if they're going to technically call it a recession, but I think we all knew that the pharma industry contracted greatly. So,
Mhm.
but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not how everybody wants to live. It can be very
Yeah.
stressful. So also there's
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
identification of what you value in your career. And then
Mm-hmm.
also another thing that I've become very um, empowered by is I actually joined a group of CEO. Um, I have a CEO trainer as well as a CEO group that I meet with, and we
Good
talk
for you.
monthly. And it's a local. The companies, I'll plug them a little bit. It's called Vistage, and there's different ones all over the country and all over
Okay.
globally. But CEO is the CEO one that I use is called Vistage, and we meet, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a group of 8 of us, and we talk about. We're all in different areas, but as far as there's a an online auctioning company. There's a CFO for hire company. There's an attorney. It's all over the place. There's a person that builds Taco Bells. But we all sit down and we talk together about our problems and what we're facing. And it is amazing to have a group of people that you trust that you can because there's certain things maybe you don't want to talk about to your staff, but you need to go
Yeah.
over. with, and vet off of people that you trust. So I'd say that's another thing to do.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. Uh, Being in a position at the top can be a very lonely place. And to be a good leader, you can't share some of the concerns or the complaints or the issues with your staff because it may give the wrong message and maybe put some doubt in their minds. So I think it's brilliant to do that and have those mentors and those peers to bounce ideas off of, to have that sanity check, if nothing else, and keep you inspired to press on forward. Chad, did you have any other questions that you wanted to pose?
I don't think so. I feel like I've known Stephanie for I don't know how long, 15 years or more, and
Like that,
probably
yeah.
more, probably 20 plus years. And every time I have these conversations, I feel like I know somebody, and then we get into these things, and I feel like I know so much more about you, and I'm so thankful for you for sharing so much with us and sharing your career, and I know it's going to inspire a lot of people who are thinking about making these tough decisions.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that to be a theme of this whole conversation today, but it seems like making the hard decision, taking the step that and defying the doubters and being successful. I mean, that's really, to me, that's the theme of this whole discussion. I thought it was AI, but that was an interesting part. I think we all learned a lot there, but it was something totally different. So again, thank you. I really appreciate it. I don't really have any other questions. I've got a million follow-ups I might have next time we're at a conference. And as we say in this, or I say specifically for me, these are at the end of the conference day, having a chat over a beer. I can't wait the next conference where we can have a chat over a beer or a glass of wine or whatever that is, to follow up on a lot of this, because I have tons of things to ask and discuss and dive into with you. But
Thank you for
Agreed. I think
having
these
me.
conversations open up more doors, for conversations and things we can talk about than we would have time for. I'm really, really pleased that you joined us. And um, just to parlay off what Chad was saying, when we talked to Russ Weiner, he said some of the same types of things. He said, if you want to have a great career, if you want to have a fulfilling career, embrace the fear and do it anyway. And you've certainly championed that and done some really amazing things in your career. So thank you for being a great example of how you can press forward and do some of those things that people said don't do and be successful anyway. So congratulations on that. So where are the best places for people to find and follow you, Stephanie?
Well, being a woman of middling years, I am on LinkedIn quite a bit. We have our website. We have Biodata Solutions, B Data Solutions, as well as I'm active on LinkedIn. I do, as Chad mentioned, I do attend many of the key different conferences, WRIB, AAPS, APA. So, but I'm also available. You could more than welcome to put my email in the link. And if anybody wants to reach out to me directly, I'm always willing to speak and to talk to anybody about any questions they have.
Excellent. Well, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you again for taking time out of your day to join us. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you again and to have you on the show. So thanks again and take care.
Thanks, Stephanie.